Blog Talk Radio.
You're listening to Radio Free South Africa with Karin Smith on ResolutionRDO.com. Call in to listen now at 607-203-5423. That's 607-203-5423.
Good evening, listeners. It's Schalk from Merwe speaking, South Africa. Yeah, we're going to have a little bit of different format tonight with our show. Karin is here in studio, but Karin is very, very ill. I can't even pronounce the word that she's telling me of what her illness is. But she's very ill, so we're definitely not going to have her on. We had a guest by the name of Mrs. Valerie Baileyveld. Unfortunately, it seems I can't get a hold of her tonight. She indicated earlier on they were working on power lines, etc. in that area in South Africa. So I think that is maybe the problem that we were not able to locate her. But I do have another guest. We originally had two guests. We still have another guest, and that is Tessa Mayer. She's also speaking from South Africa, and we're going to have a very interesting talk to her. Karin, I think let's start off, and I will speak a little bit about a few things that happened during the week in South Africa, relating to our previous radio conversation with Mr. Merwe, and that was on the subject of the accident at the school where school children were killed and injured because a dilapidated part of the school walkway fell down on them. That was quite a stir in South Africa to such an extent that I read. You also sent me the article, the media article, that more than 70 schools have now received notices that they must inspect their schools and see if they are structurally sound. So I think we actually made quite a splash relating to that story, and it's very, very nice to hear. And then, of course, the elections is running high and live in South Africa now. The DA taking on the ANC taking on the EFF. A lot of very interesting things coming out. One of the interesting things that I read about was one of the big billboards of the DA, the Democratic Alliance, in Gauteng province in South Africa, was actually set alight by, well, supposedly ANC or EFF people. It was in the precincts that they usually dominate in. So we have our first real physical violence, if you really want to call it that, in this election run. But the biggest news is that one of the opposition parties, COPE. Now, COPE was an offsplit from the ANC. It is run by a person by the name of Monsieur Lekota. He is also known as Terror Lekota. For a very simple reason, he was a terrorist, and he called himself a terrorist during the ANC years. And in the meantime, he became a premier of the Free State. He also became a minister in cabinet for some time. But there were internal forms with the ANC, and they broke off a couple of years ago and formed COPE. And COPE came across as a little bit more mature and definitely not as left-wing as, for instance, the EFF. But still, the policies is outlined old ANC type. But in this week, what happened was that Monsieur Lekota, the leader of this party in Parliament, came out. And in the open, he accused the current president of the ANC and the president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, that he was so-called sell out. Now, that's a term in South Africa referring to it's also called an impimpi, referring to people in the apartheid era who also worked or were informants for the government. Now, that's a very, very serious allegation relating to that. Because if you were seen at that stage as an MPP or a sellout, then usually you would have been necklaced. We spoke about necklacing in previous programs here. Necklacing would be that they put a car tire, an old car tire around your neck, douse you with paraffin or petrol, and simply set you alight. That is what happened in the apartheid years with so-called MPP. Now it's 4 decades later. And in Parliament, on live TV, And in front of the whole of South Africa, Ramaphosa, the president of the ANC and the country, is now called an impimpi. Now, a sellout. Now, initially, he, of course, denied it iron right. And he said, well, no, there's no truth to this. Then, a little bit later on, he changed his story a little bit to say, but yes, there was an incident some years ago at that point during the apartheid era where myself and Lakota, we were both arrested, but he was then charged for certain acts. Well, by the end of the week, we were now at Wednesday in South Africa, the story has changed where in the black political circles, a lot of people are now saying the same thing about Ramaphosa, that he was actually working as a spy for the South African government against the so-called liberation struggle. Now, this is major news in South Africa for the very simple reason that if the ANC has as its leader now a sellout at that stage to the South African government, it means that actually the ANC is running the party illegitimately. And a lot of questions is now up in the air of where does Ramaphosa actually fit in. And we spoke about his huge estate. He's a very, very rich man. He's a billionaire. But he was a trade unionist. So where did all the riches come from? There's pictures of him with basically the whole New World Order Old Boys Club. Even Soros. There's a picture that was circulated this weekend of Ramaphosa with Soros. And then, of course, also the Oppenheimer family here in the Goldfields in South Africa where I live. There's a very strong link between the Oppenheimers and Ramaphosa. So this is all very interesting. That's been going on in our local media. And the EFF was a little bit quieter, more quiet this week. The BLF is very quiet. So the whole media scene, I think, was dominated, I think, to a large part by this issue of is Ramaphosa now a sellout to the apartheid regime, or is he not? That's very interesting. I think, without further ado, I want to introduce my guest. My guest tonight is a lady by the name of Tessa Mayer. Tessa is an artist. She sings with the most beautiful singing voice, but she's also a businesswoman and also a producer and also a media fundi and. I can't describe everything that's written in her CV. Long, extensive CV. She's also now the national chairperson of the National Conservative Party in South Africa. Herself being a woman, a female, one would not usually imagine a lady being in such a high position in a so-called or a stated conservative party. So that in itself is also telling of her capabilities relating to what she does. So Tessa, good evening, and I hope you can hear me well, and you're able and willing. You can say hi to the listeners. The whole of America is listening to you now.
Hi, Schalk. Yes, thank you for the introduction. I'm Tessa, and I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for this interview. I'm very glad to be here.
Okay, I want to give the listeners a little bit of background relating to yourself. In my intro, I introduced you, but you can give us a little bit more detail. The genres of music that you're mostly involved in, or were mostly involved in. What would that have been?
You know what, Scott? I would say that I'm more of a coach, a developer of talent. At the core of my being, I would describe myself as being an entrepreneur. What really got me going was the talents in South Africa. So what I actually started to do is I got involved in developing artists. So because of my talent, I'm a performing artist myself. I would say that the genres that I really love to sing would be country and gospel mostly. So I founded Unleash Your Voice, and the whole thing behind Unleash Your Voice was to give a voice to rising messages, talents, callings and brands, but especially to develop talents. Because at that time it seemed like the people, our people, was not investing into their own talents. And it was strange to me. So I got involved in developing a program. And yes, well, then Unleash Your Voice was founded. So the whole core of Unleash Your Voice is to design, brand, create, and unleash it. So messages, talents, businesses, and everything that goes along with that. So needless to say, I involved myself in the development of what I'd like to call identity branding of our people. And that was the time, Schalk, when I met you, actually, and got entangled in the development process of getting involved with the NKP and development of some media for the NKP, and the rest is history, as you would know. So yes, I love a new development challenge. I am creative, artistic. I would say I've got an intuitive side that is founded in observing, listening, and looking much deeper than the skin. And that allows me, and I think people like me that would call ourselves creators, an edge to develop media for a unique cause like talents and the people of South Africa and, of course, the NKP as well.
Yes, I also had long discussions with you relating to the issue in South Africa of politics, of the racial makeup of South Africa. The call of the Boer people, the background of the Boer people, things like that. And it struck me that you're one of the people that really did research for yourself. There's a huge amount of I wouldn't call it knowledge, a huge amount of information in South Africa relating to all these subjects. But it seems to be that you're a person that rather goes and finds out for yourself and go to the core of issues. Can you discuss a little bit with us your views on you call the Afrikaner people, the Boer people?
Yes, of course. I'd be delighted to. Well, in my opinion, our blueprint or our nature or character is built from domestication, education, and the programming that's laid down by our parents and the people around us. And by default, that design the template of our core beliefs, shaping the kind of human prototype we are created into, and creating or destructing power that we move forward with. Now, I am a believer that our people are good people. We are builders and shapers of South Africa. And you kind of get the sense that we have lost that somewhere along the line with all of the changes that took place in South Africa over the last 20, 30 years. And that's just very sad to see, because you find more and more of our people not really investing in who we are and the core nature of who we are.
I want to come back to what you said about blueprinting. What do you mean if you say blueprinting? Are we speaking genetics here? Are we speaking cultural, socially? What is that you're referring to?
I would say it's a compact design of both, Schalk, because what you believe in is what you're going to take forward with you. When I say blue, whatever is instilled into us by domestication and education and programming is exactly what we're going to produce in the future. That is one of the things that I believe is a destructive power at this stage in South Africa, because we see that we are forced to work with people that have not been through that process, and we're really dealing with people that's destructive in whatever they do.
Yes, and coming back to blueprinting, it's very poignant to see how people have been brainwashed into the wrong direction, brainwashed into being cultureless, or I wouldn't even call it a one culture. It's a cultureless world and the society that we're moving into. What's your views on that?
Yes, well, I personally feel that our people have been brainwashed to believe that they are worthless. And you can see it. It's as if our people, they're not investing in themselves, they're not speaking up. It's lost the sense of who they are and who they were before. So if you look at branding and the primal branding of people, I'd like to call it the primal branding, which is the blueprint, that sort of gives way to the personal branding, which gives the nature, temperament, and vocation, personalities, and stuff like that, the platform. And while we see a shortage of that in our people, because it seems like they feel, well, they haven't got any space and any place in South Africa, so they just stepping back and they don't own their space.
Yes, and it's not only a South African trend. It's a shame that we can't have Karin going on and speaking about everything that's happening in the United States, for instance. We speak to Bryza, for instance, from Ireland, also on a regular basis, many of the people from Eurofolk Radio and so on. And you will find that the exact same thing that we are experiencing in South Africa is being experienced on a global scale. It's a global trend where you have cultural misappropriation of let's call it of the white people. In the week there was, for instance, media reporting. I don't know if you saw that in Sweden, where a documentary is now to come out on Swedish national television, and that goes down to the original people in Sweden. And it's now alleged that those people were people with black skins and blue eyes. Where they came from.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Yes. Now that's really interesting how that is being played. Yes, there's genetic evidence of people moving from the south, from Africa, the out of Africa theory of genetics and of evolution. Maybe that is where the original people of Europe, and for that matter then Sweden and Scandinavia, came from. But to come out and post pictures and make as if it's black Africans, Bantu people, maybe people with the distinctive features of the Bantu race or the Negroid race. That's absurd. That's absurd to try and bring people's minds to now believe that black people as we know them today, who also evolved, if you follow the theory of evolution, they were now the original people in Sweden. But now that is told as truth, and that's also what we see in South Africa on a much smaller scale or micro scale in our history books, where history is just simply being rewritten. There's no factual basis on it. It's becoming it's becoming a freak show. It's becoming whatever is in the person's mind, and that you're speaking about blueprinting, personal blueprinting, where his personal blueprinting is now taking him. That becomes fact, although it's not based on anything. What's your point?
Well, I actually think that what's going on is it's a looting of our history, and it is worldwide. What I don't appreciate is the fact that our people are not speaking up. You know, when I actually started with Unleash Your Voice, the whole concept behind Unleash Your Voice was to help rising talents and help to put messages out there, but more in the line of talents. And at this stage, I am really freaked out with the fact that our people just seem to stand back and say nothing when we get confronted with things like that. It's absurd to think that everything in the world was built by Africans. It's atrocious, the things that I say, because, I mean, the Africans haven't really contributed a lot to the development of anything. Not here in South Africa, and surely not in the rest of the world. And I think it's really Well, freedom of speech is something that can open up a whole new world on that. But freedom of speech shouldn't entail telling tales, and that's exactly how I see that. It's telling tales and leaving out the facts and the history of the things.
Yes, you also see this cultural appropriation in Britain, for instance. Well, across the whole of Europe, but in Britain, not very long ago, many of the Shakespearean plays were made movies, and you would find time and time again that black actors were then put into roles of obviously white Europeans. I mean, in 15th century Britain, 16th century Britain, there were noblemen of African descent. Hamlet, being Danish, he's a Danish prince. He's portrayed in some of these movies as a black man. It's not a racist thing; it's a factual thing. It's not making you a racist to say, but whoa, stop! That's simply not how it is. That's being factual. We know that the Prince of Denmark could never have been a black African. It's as simple as that. Even if you go back into genetics and the evolution theory itself, the whole out of Africa theory, it's a theory. It's the most accepted theory. Yes, that we must concede to, but it's still a theory. There's other theories saying, well, people actually involved in Southeast Asia. And there's other theories that say, no, well, they actually came from interbreeding with Neanderthal people in the Middle East. So there's a whole lot of other issues also relating to that. That's only when you ascribe to evolution. If you ascribe yourself to creationism, then this whole issue becomes an even bigger problem, because then there's not even a trace of people genetically coming from Africa in any event. Then you believe that God created all higher being created people, and at the Tower of Babel, people were given their languages and cultures. So it becomes such a mess culturally, religiously, that it starts to boggle your mind. It starts to I think it's a very deep brainwashing to really go to the fundamentals of who a person and the people, a race is, and shake those fundamentals. And eventually break it down. Here's the counterpoint. I don't know about any white Western writers, authors, movie makers who would, for instance, make a movie about the samurai in Japan, and then pretending those people to have been white Europeans.
Yes.
We know they were Japanese. We know them. So it's exactly the same. Now, how can a Danish prince now all of a sudden become a black African? It's these ludicrous. Yes. What is your take on that?
You know what my take is on that? I think that we as Europeans or of European descent made the mistake of thinking that people overall will just stop being who they are and Europeans and have the same nature and kind of building that we have. And that's not the fact is that people tend to stay who they are, and their nature dictates that very prominently. So we see it in South Africa very, very distinctly. We see that the cultures in South Africa is not getting along all that good. The people that speak a certain language tend to get along better, and that's got cultural structures. They get along better, and I don't think that that's bound to change very soon. And for that reason, we are seeing a lot of our people getting to a stage where they just refuse to take responsibility for other people's well-being because they don't have it. They don't have the means to take the responsibility for them any longer.
Yes, that's a fact. That's a fact. We discuss apartheid regularly on the show, myself and Karin and certain of the other guests. And apartheid, at its very core, it's portrayed as being evil, but it was not. At its very core, it was simply the white population saying, we must look after the black population as if they were our children. So we that was how I was raised. I was not raised to hate black people. I was raised with the idea of I must look after them because, rightly or wrongly, they are children who can't look after themselves. And that's very true what you're saying here. We've lost that. We can't do it anymore because black empowerment in South Africa, the black empowerment economic policies of the government causes us not to be economically empowered anymore. Now I want to test you on this. Do you think this is by design or by mistake that this is happening? What's your view on that?
No, I think it's by design. I don't think people in their sense change. As I was speaking earlier, blueprint, we kind of fall back on who we were designed to be. And as soon as that foundation is laid down, and it's laid down in the first 7 years, it's laid. It's not going to change, except for if there's a big bang happening. And I don't foresee that happening in South Africa anytime soon, or for the same fact anywhere else in the world. So by default, people will be who they were raised to be. And if there has been, shortcomings, that's just going to, by default, show. Because if you put stresses around people, what's inside tends to come out. And that's what we see in South Africa, because we've got a highly volatile situation in South Africa, and people are, it's kind of just showing what's in the core, in the inside of people. That's my take on that.
Yes, I always speak about the rats in a box experiment. Now, it's a very cruel experiment. I hope people don't go and do this now for fun. But if you put a bunch of rats into a box, a piggish box, now initially they're not hungry and they're not stressed. You're speaking about stresses bringing out your inner being, and it's all quiet inside that box. And maybe there's a little bit of squeaking. Give them half a day, and the stresses start to build up, and you find that they start to fight amongst themselves.
Yes.
Give them a full day. By tonight, they are biting one another. That many of them are bleeding. By tomorrow, they are literally eating. They are cannibalizing themselves. And that's exactly what happens in societies also. That is why in Rwanda and Burundi, for thousands of years, these two racial groups. Now, okay, I will come back to that. That's because there's a footnote to that. But for thousands of years, these two races were living in a small country that is now called Rwanda, and they were living there peacefully, no problems. They were very neighborly for that matter, but they were distinct. And then because of a lot of influences and stresses, mostly economic, and people literally just economically starting to suffer, that the tensions over decades started to rise between these two racial groups, and it spilled over into a full-scale bloody genocide that lasted for 3 or 4 months, in which hundreds of thousands, we will never know how many people died, but they were genocided. So the whole concept of what can happen, I sometimes call it the zombie apocalypse.
Yes.
It's not me being alarmist, it's me seeing the stresses that we can't deal as a society with, and as a result of that, we move into a certain direction, and at some stage it's going to boil over. It is going to boil over. Well, very interesting. I just want to come back to the Rwanda issue. There's a narrative that was built after this, that it was because of the colonial authorities of Belgium decades ago, who used one of the racial groups to be the bosses of the other. And that is what caused the hatred. So once again, people are not taking responsibility for what they are. It's now that the evil Belgians who decades ago caused something that caused genocide. It is absolute nonsense. It's absolute nonsense, because that means that Afrikaner people must now go into the streets and start killing English-speaking white South Africans because of what happened in the Boer War 100 years back. But we don't do that. So it's just simply diverting and averting your responsibility. Sorry, I cut you off. I apologize, Tessa. You wanted to say something?
No, that's fine, Schalk. I actually agree with what you're saying about that. But we need to look at the reality that some of the cultures of the people living in South Africa, they are by nature, they've got a fighting. We can't ignore that anymore. It really is the fact that we, as the white South African ethnic group in South Africa, the Boer people, we don't necessarily get along with those people, because we've got a distinct character. We are builders, we are planters, we are farmers, we are producers. We don't break down, we don't burn down. We like to have our country safe. We like to care for our people. This is who we are. And the people we are forced to deal with, they are exactly the opposite of that.
Yes, that's true. And once again, what you are saying tonight is exactly some of the themes that we've been discussing previously on these shows. It goes back to what you describe as the primary blueprints of people, how they are raised and why they do certain things. White people in South Africa are by their very nature very industrious people. Nee, 'n boer maak 'n plan. I was taught from the smallest small. Now, boer maak 'n plan, it simply means a farmer makes a plan. So if you encounter any obstacle, you go and sit and you plan around the thing. Your father, I will come back to your father as a very good example, because I know him personally. But then you plan something and you make a plan and you create. That is that creative process that you're speaking about, and you overcome the obstacle. That is how we are. That does not make us necessarily then superior or inferior or anything. We don't have to value that, but that is the simple fact of the matter. Whereas many of the other cultures simply do not have that. If you don't tell them this is how it must be, because their culture has always been a chieftain sitting on his flat chair in front of his hut, telling everybody you must do this, that, and the following. So there was never that cognitive process where decision making was ever implanted. Take your father as a very good example of this. Every time I come to visit you, once in a week, once in 2 weeks, whatever, I find your father having created something new, just simply innovating something. Sometimes it's to me, but why did Uncle Nick do this now? But then I realized, but there was a problem, and he saw the problem and he tried to fix it, and that is why he created that, he innovated something new. And that is our spirit as a people. And that is why I think we have policies like black empowerment in South Africa, and affirmative action, where a small racial minority of less than 8% is now bound by affirmative action to guard 92% of the population against that.
Yeah, and that's sad. It's a sad situation, because we are expected, even with these laws against us, everything against us, to take care of the whole of the population and people fleeing in from everywhere. Now, I can fully understand the frustrations of the black people in South Africa being so poor, really being so poor, but it's not the fault of the white people in South Africa, and in my opinion, not the fault of the working class, and they are actually the people that's paying the price, being subjected to all of this violence and crime and murders and everything that's going on in South Africa. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I know of a lot of people that feel like, well, I'm single, a woman in South Africa. It's not safe for me to go places. I don't go places alone. I always go with friends because you are absolutely a target when you go out, for example, to Welkom. So that's just one of the things that we are not compatible. The different cultures in South Africa, we are just not compatible. The only way that we are to survive in South Africa is to break with this. We need to take care of our own. It's the only way.
Yeah, self-determination, secession, self-determination. This objectives that we have in mind. I want to come back to that issue of the economy still running smoothly. Well, not smoothly, but still gaining momentum and still going on despite. In the week, the premier of one of our provinces, Gauteng. Now, Gauteng is in a land area, the smallest of our provinces, but it's by far the richest province, and it has by far the biggest population also. Gauteng is the old Johannesburg-Pretoria corridor. It's traditionally extremely rich because of the gold mines and all the industries that have developed there. So it's still an extremely lucrative and rich area. I myself do a lot of business on that side. About 60% of my business is done there, whereas about 40% is done back in the Free State where I actually live. And then in the week, in his State of the Province speech, David Makura, he's the ANC Premier of Gauteng, came out and he boasted about all the development in Gauteng and how it's economically superior to the rest of South Africa, and it's true, it is. And the schools are doing good and all these things. He listed a whole range of issues. And factually, he is correct. It is going very well in Gauteng province, but not, and he's saying because of the policies of the ANC. It is not because of the policies, it's despite the policies of the ANC that it's still going good there. And that's the very sad thing. The ANC government, the new government, whether you call them black, whether you call it globalist, I like to call it globalist. It's not a racial issue for me so much as a new world order issue. They have always tried to destroy South Africa. This is what is happening now with Eskom. Eskom has, over years, being run into the ground on purpose. It didn't happen just simply because it happened. It was done on purpose. They wanted to bankrupt Eskom, which is our big power utility. Why? Because they wanted to sell it off cheaply to the next bidder. That's exactly the same that's going on with SAA. The airlines. So South African Airlines was one of the top airlines in the world. And it has been run into the ground. It has been managed into the ground up to a point where they now don't even want to take an offer of sale on SAA. They want to split it into three and then sell off parts of it. Now, you can see the trend and you can see the planning behind why these things are happening. If you can't see it, then you are blind or you have been brainwashed to such an extent that you will see nothing happening around you. Yeah. These things are done on purpose. It's by design. It's nothing else. Our mining industry, your father has worked in the mining industry his whole life. We've been living in the goldfields area of the Free State. I always call Anglo-American, and I call them by their name, a rape and grape company. Now in South Africa, grab, a raping and a grabbing company, because what they did is they came into this area, they built the mines. Yes, there was a lot of benefits to the people living around, but it was small, very, very small percentage of benefit. Our gold in London, and our people have been made extremely poor in this area because when the mines extracted, nothing was here. There was nothing left for us. And that is why this whole area is becoming an economic wasteland. It was done by design. It was not done by...
I do agree with you on that, Schalk. What's interesting to me is I've done a little bit of research on the average salaries that people overseas earn against we earn. And what struck me really hard was the fact that the people around here and companies like Anglo Gold and all of these rich companies was earning about a third of what the rest of the world's people for that kind of expertise were earning. And I don't understand when you go and you see the life quality that you can live in and why South Africa was deliberately exploited, because it's nothing else than that. And it's like you state, it's deliberately done. And we have come to a stage where we can't afford to keep silent anymore. The time has passed. We are at a point where if we as South Africans, and especially we of European descent, don't take action to take care of our own, we are not going to make it in South Africa. So with that said, to look at the definition of economic well-being, and on the internet that is defined as having present and future, and it also includes the ability to make economic choices and feel a sense of security and satisfaction and personal fulfillment with one's personal finances and employment pursuits. Now, if you only look at that, I think that if you speak to the majority of our people, they would feel that they are not free to make choices. There's a very big part of our people that is not even currently employed. So it's time to really get the juices going again and make innovative plans. As we are known for it, we have never, by design, relied on the overseas people to help us. And it's time to get back to the roots and tap into that power again and stand up and speak up and act up.
Yes, we're coming very close to midway of in our program, and in the second half, I want to dedicate the time now to exactly what you're speaking about here. I think as a little bit of an intro, let's just tell the American listener again the practical problems that we are facing as a small minority in South Africa. We're sitting with a formalized system, economic system of by government. It is legislated. It's not custom. It's legislated. It's called the Black Economic Empowerment System, through which all business must declare their so-called B status, Black Economic Empowerment status. And Black Economic status, B status, comes from, amongst others, ownership. Half of your company or more than half of your company must be in black hands. It must be owned by a black person, which can incidentally also be a Chinese person. They also deemed to be black. You must have a certain amount of black managers, whether they are skilled or not skilled, whether the universities are turning them out or not. You must have a certain amount of black managers, whom a certain amount of those must be female black managers. You must have a certain percentage of your workforce being the vast majority of your workforce being black people. And so I can go on and on. Skills development. You must give a certain amount of money from your business to skill develop black people. Although you do not use those people, it's not about black and white. You don't even use those people in your business, but you must still pay for their skill development and so forth. So it's as formalized as that in South Africa now. How can you have proper business? How can you have the businessman simply focusing on what he does best, and that is making money, if there's so much compliance here now only relating to legislation of race? Yeah. How can you expect business people to actually just simply make money and grow the economy? It costs a huge amount of money simply to comply with legislation in South Africa. It's a world problem. There's always going to be a certain amount of legislation in business, compliance factors that you must comply with. But South Africa has one of the biggest problems and the highest rates of this compliance spend that you will find on any budget anywhere in the world. And even despite that, we are still making profits in our businesses. We are still farming out a profit. Coming back to the workforce, now that is even more dire because of the black economic empowerment policies. We also have legislation that is called employment equity legislation, but it is definitely not about employment equity. It's pervasive. It's written very nicely. It makes provision for all the races and even disabled people. All these things. It's a very nicely written law. I know the law by heart. I practice a lot out of that specific act. But its effect is that a white person can forget about getting a job now if they are unemployed, and if they have work, they can forget about any promotion in their work. They simply sit where they are. They can't move. And it disenfranchises, but it also disencourages people of simply, you spoke about that earlier, but bettering themselves. Why would you now go and invest in yourself if you know in your heart of hearts it's not going to help you? Then it's better you go on your 9-to-5 job, you come back home, you sit in front of the TV and you eat your burgers. Why even invest in yourself? Because you know it's not going to help you in the future. And that's the big problem that we're sitting here. There is no economic freedom whatsoever. They can just simply take it over a socialist state now, and it would basically be the same.
Absolutely. And the history of the past 20 to 30 years, with this current economic forecast taken into consideration, which by the way doesn't look good at all, we need to face the fact that nobody else but ourselves should ever have the power to dictate our freedoms, especially economically, because this is how we care for our people and our loved ones. And a free economy is the building blocks for the growth of any country. So I think it will be a fair statement to make that our people have been grossly and deliberately impoverished and purposely disempowered. And as soon as that privilege is taken away, the privilege of taking care and giving care falls away too. And it's like you say, Schalk, you can see it, you can feel it. It's like our people, they're looking for a glimpse of hope, but it's difficult to find it when you are cut off from all the resources. And let's be honest, when you don't have money on your side, the resources won't be there.
Yes, that's a fact. That's a fact. And it becomes generational because if you do not have enough to now look after yourself, obviously your children are also being disenfranchised. So it becomes generational, and that is why I also say we're definitely dealing with something by design here. We've had in earlier years, we've had some of the most highly skilled and highly educated people in the world, and that is what was key to the survival of the so-called apartheid state, even during the sanctions. We simply had the best people.
Yeah.
That is why we survived. But they've come now and they've changed that. The universities are being broken, literally being broken down and burned down. An exemplary university like UNISA, the University of South Africa, which basically set the stage for the world of how long-distance education was supposed to have been done in earlier years. It has basically come to a standstill. They're sitting with something like 400, I don't know what the amount is, 400,000 students or something, or 200,000 students. It's a huge amount of students that's not being serviced because of all the problems relating to legislation and the students and UNISA have come to a standstill. It's one example. All the universities are being broken down. All the technical facilities and colleges are being broken down. Our schooling system is being broken down. And therefore now you are diseducating the populace of a country. Why would you do something like this if it is not by design?
Yeah, but that's something that's very interesting to me, because that's something that I think the international community don't know about South Africa. I mean, it's written in our history that the peoples of South Africa, the black people of South Africa, are known for breaking and burning down schools when they are dissatisfied with anything. But what's even worse than that is the effect that it had on the society and cultures within South Africa. Because what it's illuminated for me personally is that even with all of this power and all of the infrastructure and all of the finances and all of the say that this regime has, it still is not investing in its peoples. It's still breaking, it's still burning, it's still destroying everything that we as white South Africans have been building up for centuries. And it seems like they have a kind of, well, if I can't have the golden cow, nobody will attitude. And even with everything that they have taken from us, they're still not investing into their own people with education, schooling, training, and preparing. It's expected of the white people. That's only a small minority in this country. And it's just wrong, and people need to stand up and speak out against this.
We're coming up to the ad break now, and the next part, the second part of the program, I want to focus on economics specifically, and I want to leave you with this idea. We're going to speak about it. King Dividend calls this the creation of big slave plantation slaves. And it's exactly what's happening here. They are building a huge plantation that's being it's going to be inhabited by slaves. Okay, we're coming up to an ad break. We're going to go away for about 5 to 7 minutes. Karin, I'm very sure you're standing by.
Listen,
just switch us over.
Thank you very that much. Sound? It started low, but it's getting progressively louder. Into a crescendo, even louder. Irresistible, ending in an ear-splitting blast of mass disruption. That's the sound of America's economic and political systems crashing to the ground. But we have a plan. We will be ready to restore political sanity. We will be ready to answer the call of productive America. We will restore America's industrial base and put America back to work. We will shut down political correctness and restore decency and positive media to America. We will save our Constitution, our traditional way of life, our customs, and religion. We will restore sound money and crush the debt-based system of monetary slavery. And we will end America's foreign misadventures. We are the American Freedom Party, and we have a plan. Learn more about us, the American Freedom Party.us.
Water is the single most important thing your body needs, so you want to be sure it's the best for you and your family. Since 2005, thousands have depended on Berkey purified water. The Berkey Guy provides the lowest price filtration systems in every size. For incredibly delicious water now and in an emergency, get to GoBerkey.com or call 877-886-3653. 877-886-3653. GoBerkey.com.
We have the new product at InfoWarsLife.com, BioTrue Selenium.
We've had so many requests over the years for selenium, and just recently we were able to source a certified organic, bioavailable selenium from mustard seed extract. When you take selenium in the body, it actually benefits the detoxification systems in your body. It helps balance the thyroid gland. It helps detoxify.
Selenium is another one of those absolute must-haves.
The highest concentration of selenium is in the thyroid gland, but it's actually used all over the body. As a matter of fact, there's 25 genes in the body that are directly dependent upon selenium. So it really is a all-around nutrient that everybody really needs.
I'm taking it now every day. This is so key. BioTrue Selenium is the product, the best selenium that we could bring you. We believe it's the best out there at a very, very low price. Exclusively available at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.
You're listening to Resolution Radio. ResolutionRDO.com.
What would your life be like if you woke up each morning with new vitality, feeling better than you have in years, and you noticed a difference in your sleeping patterns, blood sugar levels, and had a sense of well-being overall? There's something that is changing thousands of people's lives, and you could be one of them. It's called Heart and Body Extract. Sharon Harris, co-creator of Heart and Body Extract, talks about the positive effects of Heart and Body Extract.
What happens with the formula Heart and Body Extract is it's giving the body the necessary vitamins, minerals, amino acids, enzymes, and phytonutrients so the body will heal itself. And yes, the body does have the ability to balance blood pressure, balance cholesterol, clean and unclog the arteries. It can also work on balancing the circulation for diabetics. So the body is an amazing thing. It simply needs some help so it has the tools to heal itself.
Heart and Body Extract gets results. To order your 2-month supply, call now, toll-free at 866-295-5305. Order online at hbextract.com.
Napa know-how.
A Napa guy knows the only way you'd give a freshly minted driver a brand new car is if he promises to never drive it. Instead, let him grind the gears and knock over the neighbor's mailbox in something a little more suited to his skill level. And with over 500,000 parts and a little Napa know-how, he can safely drive something that's nearly as old as he is. It's not perfect, but it's perfect for him. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
Katie Armor raised the standard. Finally, AR-500 steel core body armor that comfortably conforms to the chest and torso. Unique design distributes weight, feeling lighter, increases mobility, and lessens fatigue. Introducing the Combat Quad Bend CQB, a revolutionary plate forming process that caters to the end user. The CQB is an industry game changer, a must-have for the ladies. Available now, only at katiearmor.com, CATIarmor.com. Come and take it.
You're listening to Radio Free South Africa with Karin Smith on ResolutionRDO.com. Call in to listen now at 607-203-5423. That's 607-203-5423.
Guest tonight is Tessa Mayer. Tessa is a vocal artist, but she's also a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, a politician maybe, socially aware, culturally aware, and we're having a discussion relating to economics in South Africa, and then also personal freedom, blueprinting of people, brainwashing, slave plantations, all kinds of very interesting issues. Tessa, are you still on?
I'm here, Schalk.
Excellent. I want to speak about the whole concept quickly. That daily Ken dividend. I'm very sure you've heard his shows. He sometimes referred to this as building slave plantations, and it's not once again not only a South African thing. It's a global thing where you have a very, very small elite above, and then a totally disenfranchised grey mass of people that is simply a source for labor. What do you have any views on this?
Yeah, well, I've got my views about that, but I don't necessarily think that the whole of South Africa and the world will agree with me. But I mean, if we look at the history of South Africa, especially the last 20, 30 years, it's evident that the people of South Africa, the black people of South Africa, is not uplifted. And we that has been looking into this and trying to understand what's going on and what's happening, we have been bombarded with why on earth would people and a culture, if they have the means to do it now, to uplift their people, don't do it. So this is now the implication of this plantations or slave plantations is just something that I see as part of the history of the black people of South Africa, because they are actually known for slave trading. And it's just the sad ever that the people of South Africa and their own governing body selling them out to slavery, because it seems like that will be the only option for them in a new South Africa where the land is sold to China and every one of the developments not really developed for them. to benefit from.
Yes, because expropriation without compensation, the grand policy now of so-called land reform, it speaks very lightly in the actual legislation relating to restitution or giving that were disappropriated or misappropriated previously. It goes about government simply taking the land. Exactly, you're laughing at it. Simply taking the land, and then the state is the landowner. It's the landowner. It's not going to benefit black people.
No, it's not.
The rhetoric there, the political rhetoric that's being swung around is, we're now going to give the land back to the people, and our people have been defined distinctly as to be black people. Ramaphosa said it in so many words. When you listen to the EFF, they say it in so many words. It's their word, it's not ours. We're not being racist, we're simply repeating what they are saying. So the long and the short is, the rhetoric and the actual legislation, it doesn't align. The actual legislation speaks about the state that is going to own everything. And you're quite right. Then it becomes easy for them to give it to the Chinese, not even sell it, just simply give the land rights and the development rights to the Chinese or whoever is the highest bidder. And the black people in South Africa will remain the slaves. It's as simple as that. And remain poor. And the issue of poverty will get bigger and bigger and bigger. And who's going to be blamed? The white population, the white minority. And we're starting to face a Rwanda situation where we've been living in relative peace for decades upon decades, and it's going to start flowing over into a real high-powered genocide. We're going to see it. I have no doubts in my mind relating to that.
Yeah, I don't doubt that as well. The whole situation in South Africa is so volatile that as we speak, I mean, we deal and we hear about attacks and murders and the most atrocious act of violence against our people. So we can tell the rest of the world, no, everything is honky-dory in South Africa, because it isn't. It's not safe for us to be here. And if we as a people don't take the responsibility to take care of our people, well, the cultures that's ruling South Africa is not going to do that. So if we look at the definition of self-determination and that I got from the internet, it is the way by which it determines its own statehood and forms its own government, and the process by which a person controls their own life. Now, I would go as far as to say that at this stage in South Africa, that we don't have these freedoms anymore to control your own life, because it is dictated. And if we are very honest with each other, that is the way of the black cultures. They are dictators by heart and by nature. When they are given power, it's always the result. And it's playing out in South Africa just like it was playing out in Zimbabwe as well.
Yes, and the rest of decolonized Africa and then pre-colonized Africa.
Exactly.
That's the nature of things. In Europe, you had the progression from where you had folkish cultures. Our own Germanic ancestors, they had a very decentralized type of government. Every man was, the English still have that saying, every man was the head of his own castle, his own house. The households governed themselves. It was later on it started to amalgamate into family groups and clans and these types of things. It culminated with the absolute monarchs in the 1600s and early 1700s in Europe. But then the revolution came. Not necessarily communist revolution, but a revolution from the populace. So that by the 1850s, 1848 being one of the marker years, you had people, once again, nations, taking the power to themselves. And it culminated, I would think, by around the First World War, where democracy, as we know it, well, to a certain extent today, was indeed evident in Europe. But in Africa, you don't have progress or progressive following of this, or a cycle in politics. You simply have people taking over power and becoming dictators.
Yes.
And that's the trend. That's unfortunately how it is. And even if by name you ascribe to democracy, and I will come back to democracy for a moment, because even that term is now being scorned on, especially amongst white people. But even if you ascribe to democracy in Africa, you still do not have democracy. You still have some kind of dictatorship. We're sitting in South Africa with one of the most advanced and best constitutions ever written on earth. I can ascribe to that. I'm a lawyer. It's really a very, very nice and a very comprehensive constitution. But the values underlying that constitution presupposes that those in power still value everything in the constitution, and the opposite. So even in a constitutional democracy like South Africa, you still have dictatorship by a majority. I want to come very, very quickly come back to the term democracy. Democracy in South Africa is not democracy. Democracy is not supposed to, especially Republican democracy, is not an overpowering of a minority by a majority. The majority simply, I won't call it dictate in any way, simply indicate the course of events. But then, with the values of respecting and also caring and looking after the minority. Who is disenfranchised? Who is the minority? So democracy has been corrupted and disrupted to such an extent in South Africa. Then when you speak to white people now, especially conservative white people in South Africa, and you say democracy, it's become a curse word, and it's not supposed to be.
I fully agree with you on that one, Schalk. When you speak to our people on ground level, it's also evident that we really, our people have their sense of trusting in any of the system that is put out in South Africa at the moment. They don't trust anybody because as far as being taken care of, we have only been looted and lied to. And so I fully understand why our people don't want to get involved in politics, but it's also that this is the only way that we can reclaim our freedom, and that we should do, because otherwise we will just disappear. We will just disappear because the way that we are murdered, the way that our people are disempowered, we are not going to survive to tell the story if we don't stand up and claim our self-determination. We need to do it.
Yes, that it becomes the only viable option and the only sustainable option. Most white South Africans still run on the idea that was sold to them through the so-called Democratic Alliance, the DA being a big opposition party to the ANC. But in Africa, as we just explained, you either have all the power or you have no power. So the DA opposition party has been sitting in Parliament for the last 25 years, making a huge amount of noise and ruckus. But what have they actually achieved? Nothing, zero, nothing. The ANC is losing billions, hundreds of billions of rands. Not losing, stealing and robbing and corrupting and so forth. We know where the money is going. And it's unbridled. They can do it at their own ease, because we don't have a proper system. of checks and balances. We don't have a proper opposition party. It's never going to work because the majority government does not recognize the values of democracy. In any government in the world, if you lose, I think we had reports this week of 140 billion rand lost out of the Department of Education. What you call it? Gesondheid, Health, Department of Health. We had 202 billion rand stolen from the Department of Agriculture that was designated to drought relief. If any government on earth had those crises, they would have resigned immediately. Anything like that.
Exactly.
We lost a couple of 100 billion rand now. Sorry, guys. It's lost now. So we must find
exactly that.
So that's the systemic and the systemic problem that we're facing in South Africa, and it's not going to go away. And the only viable alternative, and white people and colored people, Khoisan people and Indian people, everybody should start taking cognizance of this. The only viable option is ethnic states, ethno-states. It is self-determination. There's no other way. There's no other option. And earlier, and I know I'm going to take flack for this because people also believe we have a bad constitution. We don't have a bad constitution because even written into our constitution is a right. Section 235, a right to self-determination. We don't have to go and find the right and still try and enforce it like the people in Catalonia in Spain has to do. It's written into our constitution. It's there, black and white. It's there for us to just simply go and enforce, and people do not understand that. In the week, I was speaking to one of the predominant farmers' unions in the Free State, one of their leaders. And when I started to explain to him these issues, it dawned on him. It was literally a waking up and illuminating process that he went through, in which he said, after the conversation, he said to me, "But Schalk, I never realized that we have so much power. I thought that," and it's exactly what you said earlier, "I thought that we were powerless. We had no power left." And I said to him, no. Everything is in your favor, but you've been doing that to the extent that you do not even know it. Never mind try and fulfill it. So, and that's the sad part of it. That's the very sad part of it.
Yes, because our people are believing that they have no rights, and they don't have the right to exist, and they don't have the right to live in South Africa, to be here, that don't belong here. We should go back to Europe, where we came from. That's the biggest bull. If we look at what Davy Rood, the chief economist at the Efficient Group, is saying about, or is predicting about the South Africa's state of affairs on economics, and we look at what he's predicting, it's not looking good at all. The biggest threat, he says, to the economy is the fact that the ANC seems to be hell-bent to go ahead with the land grabs. And I think at this stage, it's discouraging a lot of our people to do anything and to move forward with our culture and our nature of building a better and prosperous future for whoever is in our sphere of influence. So, yes, the state-owned enterprises that we see are being run into the he says that the debt has become so unsustainable that we can't avoid to further downgrade, and he predicts that it's very unlikely that South Africa will see a strong investment commitment after the elections. So it doesn't look good, and it's not likely to do better even after the elections. Hand in the towel, give him the towel. But I, for one, think that it's time to just let the ANC and the governing party do whatever they want to do, and we go our own way. It's the only way that I see it forward.
Tessa, yeah, a lot has been made, and I know Ramaphosa also went on public stage during the week before, and a lot has been made about all the so-called investments flowing into South Africa. Now, we must make a clear distinction between investments and investments. The implication of investment is that there will be benefit flowing from it. That is one thing, versus what we're actually seeing in South Africa, people coming into South Africa buying up things for cheap. Because that is what is actually happening. These huge amounts of money flowing into South Africa is not investments. It's not to the benefit of the country. It's people coming state, etc., that has become so dilapidated that it's been bought up for cheap, and that is what's actually happening. So even if Ramaphosa have all these commitments of all these investments coming after elections, it's not investments. We heard the rumors, and the rumors have been confirmed about the oil field that has been discovered offshore in South Africa. Now, hear me out on this one. I think that oil that's already being sold. Hear me out on that. I'm sure we're going to see media reports starting to filter through. It's already in the hands of somebody else. The shale oil, the shale gas in the Karoo, you know about that long time struggle that the people in the Karoo. The Karoo is a semi-arid, semi-desert area in the western part of South Africa, and there's a lot of shale gas in those areas. Those gas fields have already been sold off to the Russians. We know that. So even now, today, when we hear from government, no, it won't go ahead now. The exploitation of those gas fields, it won't go. It's already sold. Now, why sell it if it's not going to be exploited at some point in time? So it's just a ruse. They are playing a little game in our heads to make us a little bit softer and a little bit more at ease, and then at some point in future it will happen in any event. And this is exactly the game that is being played with expropriation without compensation, where we have been bombarded for at least a decade. Exactly what you are. You are settlers. You don't belong here. You stole the land. You must go back to Europe. Nothing that you own is actually yours. You stole it from black people, which is not the truth. But now that rhetoric, it becomes so easy to take the next step and say, well, if you stole it, you must give it back now. And that is where we're...
Yeah, that's actually where we find ourselves in now.
That's exactly where we are at this stage. Okay, Tessa, I want you to focus a little bit, and this is not an advertisement section of the program. We're running on time given to us gracefully by the radio station. But I want you to explain to us a little bit about the self-determination efforts economically that you are now creating, and which is your brainchild. What is going on? I'm speaking here of U-turn.
Well, Schalk, I've really felt very strong about uplifting our people and have a culture of building and not breaking. One of the things that's evident is the fact that our people have been sorely left out of the chance to better themselves. And the only way that you can really do that is by having finances that opens up resources. So we have thought it good to create a campaign, and we have linked up with an international company that people can use to really get financially liberated. Now, why do I say that in the sense of self-determination? I've just said, without money, we cannot take care of our people, we cannot open resources, we can do nothing. And with the current economic environment that was created for us, that's excluding us from taking care of our people, we need to find innovative ways and means to counteract that. Now, we've got a campaign called U-turn, And what it basically does is it provides benefits to independent organizations and members to get financial independence and self-determination on ground level. Now, U-Turn is a financial upliftment coaching campaign that promotes ground-level self-determination and financial independence through a phenomenal international system like I just stated. The business opportunity this system offers is remarkable in earnings potential without any investment. So what U-Turn offers is simple elimination of these benefits and training in the form of a video portal to members, and making the income generating system easy to understand and refer, and understand its advantages in their training to members, and the benefits of an analyzed system, because as we sit in South Africa, we haven't got time to really spend a lot of time to analyze the system and understand the system. But what's really beneficial of this campaign and system is that it's not based in South Africa, so it cannot be expropriated from any members building a network and building the economic state up. So it can't be influenced by the governing body. And this is absolutely, it's not the only way, but it's one of the ways that people can get to a state of self-determination and make financial choices, have financial choices to their access.
Okay, so let me get it straight then. There's an existing business. It's offshore. It's not in South Africa. I suppose it's euro-based. It's already in existence. It's systematic. It's systemic. In other words, a person doesn't have to buy anything or buy shares or invest money or anything. It simply goes about you go into the system. It's a referral business, a referral type of situation, a networking situation. It's not like, and I don't want to name a specific thing, but it's not like Amway that you must now go and buy something and sell something, etc. You simply become part of an existing business network, but it's a difficult network to get into, and that is where U-Turn, totally independent from the main business, comes, and it creates a coaching environment in which you and your team, you have a multimedia platform where you simply teach people how to use the system. This is how you go in and you get money, and this is how you do your stuff and your networking and build your structures, and in that you can create your income. Is that basically what you're explaining?
Exactly like you said, Schalk. What the business opportunity is basically about is it is a referral business. If I can describe it in plain and simple kind of definition, it would be eliminate traditional marketing costs and giving your members bonus for referring business into the system. So this is absolutely one of the systems that we as South Africans, that's put in this situation in South Africa where we need to fend for ourselves. It's absolutely one of those systems that can only benefit everyone that chooses to become involved with it.
Exactly, because you don't need startup capital, you don't need to invest money, you don't need to buy something. It's just simply moving with determination in your mind, and it's going to take effort from yourself, because you must go through the training and the coaching of U-Turn. But once you understand the system, now you can use it, and so forth. Yes, referral business. I'm in the business of referral business. Never mind how the South African legal system work and the referral business between lawyers work. It doesn't even come to that. Through organized business, and I've been involved in organized business at least 15 years. This is exactly what we do. I would build up a whole network of colleagues around me with a host of different services and a host of different businesses. And then when clients pass me by and I hear that they have a certain need for a product or a service, I simply refer them to one of my colleagues. And in return for that, it makes sense. That colleague of mine didn't have to go and advertise that in the newspaper. It's a referral business. It was referred to him. He gives me that was supposed to have gone, well, not even the whole amount, but a certain percentage of the amount that would have gone into marketing anyhow. And that is how proper marketing and proper network business opportunities work. It's not this thing of running around and making a lot of hype and people spending a lot of money and what and then expecting to become a millionaire overnight. That is not referral network.
No, it's not. You're going to put real effort into it, but the beauty of this is there's no monthly quota to fill. So once your network is built up, you are going to see a sustained income monthly, even from overseas. So this is one of the things that we as a nation and our people should take into consideration, seeing that our economy is taking very hard blows. And we as a nation are disempowered the way that we are, so that we are not reliant on the economy as it is, because our future is going to be one of rebuilding as soon as we get to the stage where we can claim our self-determination, as you know, Schalk. And the money is going to have to come from somewhere, hey?
Yes. I've always been, even before I became an outright political secessionist and a political self-determinationalist, even before that, I was always of the mind that we should build a super state, not a better state a super above state. So that you have a super economy based above the economy and a super political system based above the current situation. So if that goes wrong, you still pretty much just simply go on with business as usual. Yes. And that is the opportunities that we need to start looking at. Your system, U-turn, has nothing to do with Bitcoin. But just to give an example, I never bought into Bitcoin, but I studied it as an example of what can happen in the future. Because Bitcoin came out and it all of a sudden created an opportunity to have the flow of currency beyond the flow of currency. It was cryptocurrency. It was based on the internet. It was based in the virtual realms. Whereas to move currency from one country to you would by definition always have to have a bank. Now all of a sudden, you buy a certain amount of Bitcoin and you can actually go and spend that amount of Bitcoin anywhere else in the world. Theoretically, now we know Bitcoin didn't pan out in that way, but it's instruments like that, cryptocurrency, all these new, I want to call them new economic things that's coming through, that's going to make it viable and sustainable more than any other time previously for us to have self-determination. Self-determination could not happen 10 years back. Sorry. There's guys having blows at plus. I also want to trash them. It's one of the other parties in South Africa. Their mandate was always self-determination for Afrikaners. They never did it. So I like to bash them in the media. But let's be realistic about it. 10 years back, self-determination could maybe have being created, maybe. But I don't foresee that it would have been sustainable and viable. Today it is. In 2 years' time from now, the whole economic scene globally is going to make it even more sustainable, even more doable. There's a very interesting thing I'm doing. I don't want to divulge things like this, but I'm doing business, for instance, with a company in Iceland. I'm doing virtual business transactions in Iceland. Now, just 2 or 3 years ago, you couldn't have done that because the technology was not there. And this is exactly where we need to go. Having meetings. We're having a radio program where you're sitting in a city across from me. You're close by, but you're sitting in another city. I'm sitting in a little town, and Karin is sitting in Texas. It's like, I think, 12,000 kilometers from here. I don't know how far it is. But we're still having a discussion. We could just have been having a meeting now. 3 parties on 2 continents. We do have the technology now. Yes. Now, just now to add logistics to this, we have huge companies now globally that run logistics for the distribution of things. So you can buy wine in Italy and it can be delivered to your doorstep 3 days afterwards. Literally, this is how the things are happening. So it's the global village that we've always been speaking about. That has actually now occurred. It's happening as we speak now, and it can be exploited. It could have been very detrimental to ourselves, but I think if we take the advantages of this, it can really become the reason for self-determination. I've always been of the view that self-determination must be driven economically more than politically, because if it makes sense to a person's pocket, he's going to buy into it. And that is what we're also attempting with this. You can maybe expound on this if you need to.
Well, I'd like to light up another point, and that is the fact that you made the statement that 10 years back, or self-determination wouldn't have been possible. But I think for other reasons it might not have been possible, because we as a nation, we bought into this rainbow nation of South Africa, because really the people of South Africa, we as the white South Africans, we were just so fed up with all the fighting playing out in South Africa. So 10 years back, I just think that people were still very much invested in the Rainbow Nation and was hoping and praying for this to play out another way. But yes, at this stage, technology and other factors has led us to the place where it's evident that this is the path to follow.
And it's
the only way to follow.
Yes, and it's I think we're going to see a very interesting trend if any of the culture, the ethnic groups, the cultural groups, let's say the Khoisan, because I still believe that the Khoisan people have the most realistic chance of pulling this off before anybody else. Let's say the Khoisan can set the precedent of secession, and I'm not speaking about seceding the whole of the Western and Northern Cape. That's not going to happen. It's going to cause a civil war. They will have to go and redefine where they want their ethnic state. But let's say they do that, and we can have the Vakona people in the northern province, and we can have even the Zulu people, and we can have the Boer people. It's not a going to South African thing. You're going to find that also in Zimbabwe, because in Zimbabwe you're also sitting with ethnic tensions. You're definitely going to find it in certain areas of Mozambique. A very large part of what is now Namibia is, for instance, Ovambo land. And they have Herero land, and they have the area that's inhabited by Nama people, and they have the Rewobot, so-called bastard people. It's a very ugly word for what it is actually, but it's also an ethnic group there. So I foresee that we're going to have a balkanization of the whole of the southern African subcontinent, not only of South Africa. So we're dealing with tremendous big things that can happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I hope it's going to happen. But very big things that can happen. But then we must stabilize the situation that it does not run into a full-scale, full-blown civil war.
Exactly.
And one of the key aspects is going to be economics. If we can build a super economy that stands above all these things, and we can survive all these things, all the political turmoil going on beyond it, then we can ensure a smoother flow into the direction of self-determination as a whole for all the minorities. The Indian people is...
So yes, this is what...
Yes, Tessa?
This is what Uturn wants to drive, Schalk. Sorry for cutting you off there. You just went away for a minute. I thought that you stopped speaking. At executive management level, we see that managers of companies, and they don't have the time to focus on getting trained and getting a new system analyzed. So this is what we actually bring to the table. We are driving financial stability throughout our people on ground level. And this is what U-Turn strives to do through this mother company, Eurobase, that can't be touched. And this is how we want to build an economy basically for our people above the economy of South Africa that's currently, seems to be falling apart. We hope that it's going to stabilize, but it's certainly going to depend on us and our efforts to bring on some new innovative plans to make that happen.
Yes, definitely. Okay, we're running into the last section, the last few minutes of the show. Tessa, can you believe you've been on American radio for more than 1.5 hours? Can you believe that?
Yes. Well, it's such a nice feeling to know that you're speaking to a broader group than South Africa. So I'm honored. Thank you very much for having me.
No, you're still on. I'm just asking you because time tends to fly. It's a shame.
Yeah.
It's a shame Karin is sitting there.
Speaking from the heart.
Yes, because if Karin was also in the fray, you would have seen 2 hours. All of a sudden, it feels like 10 minutes. But yeah, it's of course a hugely important work that we're doing, and I'm not being egotistical when I say this. We are saving not only South Africa. The truth is, and as you've become a truther, you don't even know it. The truth is, we are literally saving the world because we are the last voice. We literally are the last voice to tell the people out there, guys, you're going the wrong direction. It's not going to work. You're going to kill yourself. And it's truthers across Europe, across North America, South Africa. We the guys bringing actually the gospel, the good news. And I'm not speaking Christianity here now. I'm speaking about political, social, economic, sustainability, survival. We are literally bringing the good news to the world to tell them. But it's not that bad. It's extremely bad. But if we make the right decisions now, we can still pull this thing out of the fire. 2 years from now,
I agree with you.
Yes, 2 years from now it's going to be very difficult. 5 years from now it's going to be too late. That's it. And I'm not a good prophet. I've seen it. We've seen it in South Africa.
It's necessary to speak it like it is. It's time to unleash our voices. More of us should do this.
Yes, exactly. Like your company's name, Unleash Your Voice. That's exactly how it is. I want to suggest the following. On our previous shows, we discussed the issue of funding, and we proposed that the American listeners just simply pay any money into the existing accounts of Radio Free South Africa. It's not a problem for us. It's tagged simply as NKP. If they want to contribute or they want to become part of the U-Turn program, how can the American listener, because they can indeed become part of it, how can they then access that? Do you have a website and a specific place that they can go to?
Yes, Schalk. The email address of U-Turn is info.uturnsa@gmail.com. I can be reached personally on my phone. The number is 060-600-3593. And, the website is https://www.u-turn.ga. So anyone can access us from there and are very welcome to speak with us.
Yes, because we want the American listeners to also pitch in on this. I'm not as clever as you. You're way more intelligent than me, and you can say all these numbers and the websites just simply from your head. Just repeat that to us very slowly. Enough time for everybody to write it down. Thank you very much, Tessa.
Right. https://www.urn.ga.
U-turn, like you would do in a road. If you come to a place in the road, you realize you messed up now, it's the wrong way that you're going, you make a U-turn.
That's it. U-turn to prosperity, to gain self-determination from the hearts of our families.
Okay, just give your email address. Yes.
That's info.uturnsa@gmail.com.
Okay, thank you, Tessa. Yeah, we into our last 5 minutes or so, I think we're going to call it quits about 10 to. Just for purposes of the station. The station must also have an income from this program. So once again, the gracious time that Radio Free South Africa is giving us. And Sunny, thank you very much again for the time that you're giving the South African cause. 2 hours a week. It's tremendously important, and thank you so much for that. Tessa, to you, thank you very much for your time. I think we will have back at some stage again, not only to speak about economics, to speak about a lot of other things, because it's clear to me that you're a very well-versed lady in a host of issues relating to truthing and all these aspects that we discussed. And once again, Karin, I'm so sad that you couldn't join us tonight, but you're sitting, I saw you on video. You're sitting there in your little onesie. I think you call it a onesie, and you're sick and you're coughing and everything. But I'm very sure next week you will be back and stronger than ever. Yes, thank you very much again for the opportunity that you're giving us for spreading the truth into the United States. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you for having me as well. Thank you, Karin.
Thank you, Tessa. To the American listeners, we will be back next week, same time, same slot. Once again with a guest that can bring you first-hand information, down on the ground, boots on the ground type of information, not things that we read and we theorize about. And this is why it's so important to have programs like this, so that you do not hear second-hand news and you do not hear things that maybe is narrated, and maybe a person has sat down for hours and hours and written a script. What you hear here on this program is simply what is from our hearts, our own experiences many of the times. And this is what is so important, to spread that truth, to put that platform out there, and just simply to have the people of the world and of the United States having a sneak peek into what South Africa of today is, and to realize that, guys, we really need you. We need you as the public to go to your senators and go to your congressmen and say to them, help the South Africans, help the white South Africans. They are really in dire need of your help now. So thank you very much. I'm going to sign off, and yes, thank you very much, guys. That's a wrap.
Once I was a blind man, wandering to and fro. Once I was in sin, out of control. But He reached down and picked me up, poured His Spirit over me, knocked the scales from my eyes, and now I